Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have our invocation coming up here shortly, but before that, I would like to just take a brief moment of silence and remember longtime Rotarian Danny Gendelman, who passed away this weekend. Danny, the owner of Interplan Office Interiors, served on the board of directors and was an active member for many years on the Environment and Ecology Committee. Her funeral is today, for those of you who are able to attend. Please, we ask anybody attending to wear something of blue in honor of Danny's lifelong commitment to fresh water and stewardship of the earth. We send our sympathies and support to her and her family. Thank you. And I know Danny will be missed. Please welcome Sister Kathleen O'Brien, Provincial Coordinator of the School Sisters of St. Francis, to the stage to give our invocation.
Thanks, President Todd. It's a good day in the Christian tradition. It's All Souls Day, so it's a good day to remember our fellow Rotarian. But I'd instead like to remember the angels among us. St. Michael the Archangel, who is heaven's glorious commissioner of police and firefighters, who once so neatly and successfully cleared God's premises of all undesirables. Do, Michael, look with kindly and professional eyes on our earthly force of police and firefighters. Guide these to have cool heads, stout hearts, and uncanny flair for investigation and wise judgments. Make them the terror of burglars, the friend of children and law-abiding citizens, kind to strangers, polite to boors, but follow courageously their moral compass so they can move beyond their own prejudices. And likewise, help your firefighters to have the strength and courage and perseverance to endure their very difficult duty. And one other thing, Angel Michael, may you guide those who on earth are entrusted with overseeing the sometimes unruly and boisterous civil servants we call our safety people. They see the world sometimes only from the ground up. Assist both to follow the heavenly principles as they do the law of the land. Amen.
Thank you, Sister. I'd also like to briefly thank our sponsors whose logos appeared on the presentation before the program this morning. If you or your company are interested in a sponsorship for Rotary, please contact Mary in the Rotary office. I'd like to give a special welcome this morning to all of you joining virtually online, and in particular the Wisconsin Eye audience who is joining us. It's always a privilege to partner with Wisconsin Eye. And we appreciate all you do to bringing unedited and nonpartisan news about state government to the citizens of Wisconsin. So welcome to those of you joining us this morning via Wisconsin Eye. Also welcome to all our Rotarians who are joining us this morning via live stream. We have seen people continuing to show up to our in-person meetings, and we've seen attendance here continue to grow. We're probably seeing about 80 people per meeting showing up. I have heard some members mention that working from home, it's always a challenge to have to get dressed and put on a tie to come down to Rotary. A lot of things have changed during the pandemic, and while business casual has always been acceptable here at Rotary, business casual has become maybe slightly more casual in the previous 18 months here. So, we do want to see people back here. We do want to see people back in person. So, again, please use some judgment. Obviously, no pajamas for, morning meetings and whatnot. But, please, if dress is something that's holding you back, please don't let it. We want to see, Rotarians back here in person. We do have a couple guests to recognize. Catherine Foley from King Communications Group, and Girish Shaw from Logicalis. Welcome to our club this morning. We're excited to have Lee Todd here join us as a speaker, but first we've got some club business to take care of. I'd like to welcome Kimberly Kane to the stage to introduce our newest member.
Thank you, President Todd. It's good to see all of you bright and early on a Tuesday morning. Before I introduce our newest members, I just want to talk just for a moment about the importance of nominating members. When I take a look at kind of joining an organization, I look at two things. You know, one, what is the value joining an organization can create in my life? We're all so busy. And when you look at Rotary, there are so many things that Rotary brings into our lives. Rotary has a phenomenal reputation. The impact that Rotary is making here locally and globally is amazing. In fact, I was just talking with Bob a few minutes ago about what we're doing internationally with engineering and schools and in Guatemala. So it's a chance to make a local impact and a global impact. And it's a chance to build your network and get to know some amazing people here in the Milwaukee area. But in addition to that, I think it's important when we join an organization to also take a look at what value we can provide to that organization. So Rotary's ability to achieve its mission is contingent on great people like us being involved, getting involved, helping Rotary achieve its mission, getting involved in programming. But the other side to that is the value we can bring is nominating new members who can join us in helping Rotary achieve its mission and have a lot of fun here in the community as well. I guess there's a third thing right now. Is there still a competition going on, Todd, between members and the board?
Friendly competition.
Friendly competition. So if you're competitive, I think it's the board up here. It's a tie? It's a tie score. So if, I think you guys are well equipped to crush the board in terms of new member nominations. So bring it. We have until what, the end of the year? So there's value that Rotary brings to your life. There's tremendous value that you bring to Rotary. And there's a friendly competition going on right now. So why not nominate a member? So with that introduction, I'd love to introduce a new member that I nominated recently, Jeff Neeson. Jeff is he is currently the president for Bolt Construction here in the Central Operations area. So Central Operations is comprised here of the Milwaukee region, going up to Madison and down into Chicago. Bolt, if you're not familiar with the company, offers construction services, including integrated lean project delivery, construction management, design and build, real estate development, also consulting and technical services. When Jeff joined Bolt's corporate leadership team, he brought with him 30 years of experience in a wide variety of industries, including healthcare, research and development, infrastructure, and power and education. Jeff holds a BS in Civil and Environmental Engineering from UW-Madison and an MBA from Memphis State University and Fulgham College of Business and Economics. His current duties at Bolt include overall business leadership, including pre-construction, construction management, value engineering, planning, contract administration, and safety programs. And he has time to join us here this morning, which is amazing. Jeff works to ensure that all of the projects that Bolt is involved with are being delivered to the highest level of satisfaction as determined by each owner that Bolt Construction is working with. I believe he's an excellent addition to the Rotary Club of Milwaukee. We hope to have him speak at a luncheon in the next year or so, perhaps, about some of the exciting things that Bolt is doing, including the pandemic accelerating an innovative kind of manufacturing process that Bolt has introduced to the industry. So we'll tease that potentially as a topic coming up. So please help me welcome Jeff Neeson, who's going to say a few words.
Thank you. First of all, just thanks for making me feel so welcome here. Everybody just seems to be so friendly and ready to welcome somebody in. I look forward to getting more involved in some of the opportunities and meeting all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly, and Jeff, welcome to the club. We're excited to have you. We do have, in keeping with tradition, it's a fairly young tradition considering this is only our second breakfast meeting, but Jamie Reeve has generously brought another giveaway this morning. I know it was bacon last month, and it's always hard to beat bacon, but I do not know what it is, but he will be circulating around the room. If you are interested in Jamie's giveaway, please drop your card in, and we'll pull names at the end. Please join us for our next Done in a Day opportunity. It's Saturday, November 6th at Feeding America of Eastern Wisconsin. Volunteers are needed to sort and pack food at their Lindsay Heights location, 9 a.m. until noon. Children are welcome and encouraged to come, but they must be accompanied by a parent or a guardian. So there is a sign-up in your email that went out yesterday, as well as a sign-up board on the registration table outside. So if you're able to make it and interested, please sign up. Always a great opportunity. The latest edition of our People of Action series is now out. The newest profile features Rotarian Jerry Stepaniak and the work he has contributed both inside and outside of our Rotary Club. We do have copies on the table for everybody, as well as in our website and in our social media channels. So please take a moment to check that out. A special thanks to Mary Bolick for putting together an excellent profile on another great Rotarian. So thank you, everybody, for that. The next Thai Rotarian Tour is scheduled at Marathon Machines on Thursday, November 17th. For those of you who remember, Glenn Reed was recently here as a guest. He founded Marathon Machines originally in Silicon Valley, but has since moved their location, their manufacturing, here to the Menominee Valley. So there is still space to join. You can sign up either online, through the email you received yesterday, or there is also a sign up for that outside on the registration table. We have had conversations recently about the acoustics here in this room and the audio system. So one of the things we wanted to do is make sure, for everybody in the room, we're doing some surveys to figure out where we're seeing issues and where we're not seeing issues. So on everybody's table, you should have a quick audio card there for different parts of the program. So if you are so inclined, we would appreciate the feedback at the end of the program to be able to go through. If you are experiencing audio issues, please take a moment, fill that card out. At the end of the presentation, we'll go through, we'll collect those, and it'll help us, really focus in and pinpoint where we are having issues with the audio system here in this room. So, your feedback means a lot for the quality of our programming, and thank you in advance for cooperating with us. One final point before we get to our speaker. We did have a quick conversation this morning, Mary, Dr. Bob, and myself, about masks, booster shots, COVID vaccines, and, made the determination that masks will be no longer, we can ease our restrictions slightly on the masks. So if you have been vaccinated, if you have had your booster, masks, we're not encouraging people to wear them. People are always encouraged to use their personal choice and wear a mask if they so choose. So, and with that, Joan Kessler, retired judge at the Milwaukee Court of Appeals and current member of the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission, will introduce our speaker.
I feel like I'm blasting by talking into this because it's so close. So if I am talking too loud, let me know. Okay. It is my privilege and pleasure today to introduce the Executive Director of the Fire and Police Commission. But I think I should spend a couple of sentences at least telling you what the Fire and Police Commission is all about and how it relates to our speaker. The Fire and Police Commission supervises the Milwaukee Police Department and the Milwaukee Fire Department. And each of them have several hundred, at least, employees. I'm guessing thousands, but I couldn't find the numbers on the websites. That may be because it's a moving target. In any event, the Fire and Police Commission sets policies, standard operating procedures, and approves all hiring and promotions, and reviews discipline if it's requested by the person who was disciplined for both of those institutions. That's a lot of people. The Executive Director of the Fire and Police Commission makes it possible for the Fire and Police Commission to function. The Executive Director keeps the operational machinery of the Fire and Police Commission and running, and it now has a staff of about 28 people, or at least authorized staff of 28 people. Sometimes the numbers change a bit. Following some unfortunate actions a year or so ago involving the previous Fire and Police Commission leadership, the firing of the previous police chief, and the resignation of the then executive director, the man you are about to hear from, Leon Todd, who goes by Lee, agreed to become the executive director of the Fire and Police Commission in spite of the daunting challenges presented. Let me tell you a little bit about this courageous man. He was born and raised in Milwaukee. He and his wife, Nikki, and their two daughters, Jane, age 8, Juliet, age 9. I have a feeling Halloween was a really big deal at their house. Live on the east side of Milwaukee, and both of the children attend a Milwaukee public school. I also know that Lee is very smart. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a BA in political science, then stayed to earn a JD degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison Law School, cum laude, which means he was really smart. While he was in law school, he was on the dean's list, and he had the job of being the managing editor of the Wisconsin Law Review. Now, that is no small undertaking. Having spent time in law school myself, I'm fairly familiar with how much work goes on to get those law review editions out. And that he did that and still accomplished the amazing record he did is pretty impressive. But that wasn't enough. While he was in law school, in his spare time, he interned with a project called Legal Assistance to Institutionalized Persons. That's a program run by the law school, supervised by 2 or more professors, that urges students to volunteer to participate in litigation or drafting papers for institutionalized persons who have a colorable claim to a right for release or a colorable claim that they should have been treated differently for various reasons. That's a lot of work and a lot of learning. After law school, Lee was an attorney at Foley and Lardner in Milwaukee for about 5 years. Then he worked on the staff as an attorney for legal action for about the same amount of time. And in 2014, he joined the appellate division of the State Public Defender's Office. There's kind of a pattern here. Lee was always interested in trying to make things better for people who couldn't do it themselves. In spite of the demanding work at the current job, he remains involved in the community. He's a member of the Board of Directors of the Wisconsin Justice Institute, the Board of Directors of Legal Action of Wisconsin. He's a member of the Milwaukee Bar Association, Three Holy Women Parish, the Wisconsin African American Lawyers Association, and the Milwaukee Turners. Lee Todd's commitment to Milwaukee and competence for this daunting job could not be stronger. We are lucky to have him. It's my privilege to introduce the man I am fortunate enough to be able to work with on a regular basis, Lee Todd.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Joan, for that great introduction. I would like to start by extending my thanks to the Rotary Club for inviting me to speak here today, and I'm really very excited to talk with you about the Fire and Police Commission. As Joan Kessler mentioned, my name is Leon Todd, and I am the Executive Director of the City of Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission. The position of FPC Executive Director is a cabinet-level position within the City of Milwaukee local government. It requires appointment by the mayor and then confirmation by the Milwaukee Common Council. I was appointed to this position by Mayor Tom Barrett in November of 2020 and then confirmed by the Common Council in December. I was officially sworn in on December 30th of 2020, so I've been doing this job for about 10 months now. And I have to say, the job is not for the faint of heart. There's really nothing quite like it. The FPC is dynamic by nature. We're always dealing with emergent issues. So there's no shortage of challenges in the work that the FPC faces, but there has never been a more important time for the FPC to rise to meet those challenges. I've lived in Milwaukee almost my entire life, and I genuinely love this city and this community. And I also know that we have significant challenges related to gun violence and other violent crime, reckless driving. In addition, we have to ensure that policing in Milwaukee is not only effective from a public safety standpoint, but also that it's constitutional. So there is a real urgency to having a functional, deliberate, and responsive Fire and Police Commission to promote public safety, as well as fairness, accountability, and transparency in our approach to policing. That's why I stepped forward to take on this role, to help the FPC accomplish this important mission. Before I dive into my presentation, I want to give you just a brief overview of the areas I'll be covering today. I'll be focusing on 5 main issues. First, I want to give you an overview of the history, organizational structure, and key responsibilities of the Fire and Police Commission. Second, I'm going to discuss some of the highlights and achievements that the FPC had in 2021. And then I want to do a bit of a deeper dive into 3 areas: our recruitment processes and efforts to diversify the Milwaukee Fire and Police Departments, our work towards achieving compliance with the Collins Settlement Agreement and realizing the goal of constitutional policing, and then finally, the ongoing Chief of Police selection process. So regarding the history of the FPC, as you probably know, the FPC is one of the oldest and most powerful civilian-led police and fire oversight agencies in the entire country. And the FPC as an institution is rooted in 2 key principles. First, independence, and 2, the idea that the people of Milwaukee should determine what policing looks like in their own community. With respect to independence, as an institution, the FPC ensures that the police and fire departments are separated from politics. Those departments and their leaders are not directly accountable to political actors or elected officials. Instead, they're accountable to the FPC Board, which consists of community representatives that has oversight authority concerning all aspects of the Fire and Police Department's operations. Now, as business and civic leaders in this community, everyone in this room has a stake in preserving this civilian oversight structure of the FPC. We cannot have a vibrant, thriving Milwaukee without public safety and the necessary oversight of those who are in protective services. So the FPC has a long history in Milwaukee. It was originally established by state law in 1885. And again, it was established to remove the influence of politics from the fire and police departments. Prior to that time, the chiefs of both departments were appointed by the mayor, who would often use the appointments and the appointments of other police officers as a form of political patronage. The new law in 1885 made the FPC responsible for appointing the chiefs and for setting standards for employment and candidate testing. And in fact, since 1885, no person has been appointed or promoted to any position within the fire or police departments without the approval of the FPC. And I think that's something that's really significant and remarkable. And then in 1911, the FPC's authority was expanded to include all aspects of operational oversight of the fire and police departments. So this next slide shows an organizational chart of the Fire and Police Commission. And at the top, as you can see, there's the board, the FPC Board, which in many ways functions similarly to the board of board of directors of a corporation or a nonprofit. The FPC Board has oversight authority of the police and fire department's operations, while the day-to-day operations themselves are run and managed by the chiefs of the departments. The board is assisted in its work by a full-time professional staff, which I have the privilege to lead as the commission's executive director. And the FPC staff are divided into 7 units: administration, legal, audit, community engagement, staffing services, investigations, and emergency management. The FPC as an institution is comprised of 7 part-time citizen board members and again, a full-time staff. The board's authority and responsibilities are set forth in Wisconsin Statute 6250, and its key responsibilities include approving the appointments and promotions of every member of the police and fire departments, including the chief of police and the fire chief, establishing policies and standards for both departments, and hearing disciplinary appeals of members of the departments who have been disciplined by their chiefs. And the board is also responsible for oversight and reform efforts, setting employment and testing standards, and monitoring the investigations of citizen complaints. So as Commissioner Kessler mentioned, there is quite a bit of work. There is a lot that's expected of both the commissioners and the FPC staff. The board currently has 7 members, although under state law it can have either 7 or 9 members, but that determination is up to the mayor to decide. FPC commissioners, like the FPC executive director, are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Common Council. However, the commissioners are appointed for terms of 5 years, whereas I serve at the pleasure of the mayor. And the board typically meets twice a month for its regular meetings, which are open to the public, and they're on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays of every month. And the board also has 4 standing committees. The FPC department, as I've mentioned, consists of myself, and then there's 23 core staff members. There's 28, as Commissioner Kessler mentioned, if you count the new Office of Emergency Communication. As executive director, I am the principal assistant and advisor to the FPC board, and I staff and manage the commission meetings, and I also am a member of the mayor's cabinet and lead the FPC department. I want to switch gears now and talk briefly about some of the highlights and achievements of that the FPC had in 2021. But before I do that, I also want to talk about the challenges and the difficulties that the FPC experienced in 2020. As many of you no doubt know, 2020 was a turbulent year for the FPC. Following the murder of George Floyd in May of 2020 and the local and nationwide protest that event sparked, the FPC board at the time became increasingly at odds with former Chief of Police Alfonso Morales' approach to policing. Ultimately, the board lost confidence in Chief Morales and demoted him to the position of captain in August 2020. Morales then resigned shortly thereafter, and he filed a lawsuit challenging the legality of his demotion. In the meantime, the FPC board began a nationwide search for a new police chief. However, the board was ultimately unable to agree on who the next permanent chief should be. In December of 2020, the board twice split 3-3 between 2 of the final candidates for chief of police. This was at a time when the board only had 6 members, and that was the reason for the tie vote. And because no candidate received a majority of the board's votes, the selection process was put on pause by the board. Now later, the Wisconsin Circuit Court reversed the board's decision to demote Morales, finding that that decision violated Morales' due process rights. And the board subsequently suspended its search for a new police chief. At the same time this was going on, the FPC department experienced significant resignations and staff vacancies for a number of reasons. At the point when I became executive director at the beginning of this year, approximately 40% of the positions at the FPC staff were vacant. But the good news is that despite these challenges, since the beginning of this year, things have turned around and they have continued to move in a positive direction at the FPC. We have a fabulous new executive director, And we've also filled 9 additional staff vacancies, including Chief of Staff, Staffing Services Manager, and 2 auditor positions. We also have 4 great new commissioners who have brought a wealth of professional experience and new perspectives to the board. Commissioners Amanda Avalos, Ed Falone, Linnell Ramey, and your own Rotarian, the Honorable Joan Kessler. And with these new changes, there is improved communication now between the FPC board members and the FPC staff. We have improved communication between the FPC as an institution and the police and fire departments. The board has also approved 35 changes this year to the Milwaukee Police Department's standard operating procedures. And these have included items of great public interest, like a standard operating procedure on Milwaukee Police Department's fair and impartial policing strategy and policy. The board has adopted a new community-oriented policing policy. It's adopted a policy that places restrictions on the use of canines. It's adopted a policy that bans the use of chokeholds by police officers. And it's adopted a standard operating instruction that creates and establishes a traffic safety unit. The board is also set to consider additional changes to MPD policies that would limit or ban the use of no-knock warrants, as well as create whistleblower protections for officers who report misconduct. In addition, the FPC board appointed Aaron Lipsky as fire chief, and he was sworn into that position in June of 2021. So we have permanent, stable leadership within the fire department. And finally, the Morales litigation has been settled, and the board is on track to vote on the appointment of acting chief Jeffrey Norman for the position of permanent chief of police, and that vote is scheduled for this week, Thursday, on November 4th. I'll be talking a little bit more about that going forward. So I want to talk now about, do a deeper dive into some of the work of the FPC, starting with our recruitment processes and our efforts to diversify the police and fire departments. Our recruitment is conducted through a lens of equity and inclusion. Our highest priority is to diversify the police and fire departments so that they represent the Milwaukee community. The FPC Staffing Services Unit is responsible for recruitment, testing, and examinations for positions within the police and fire department. The recruitment is conducted in coordination with recruiters from the Milwaukee Police Department and the Milwaukee Fire Department. Another recruitment goal is to build community trust and partnerships. If the community doesn't believe that the FPC is a trustworthy organization, our recruitment efforts won't be effective. And finally, as a recruitment goal, we want to educate Milwaukee residents about the processes, pathways, and careers in the Milwaukee Police and Fire Departments. People may know that we're hiring for these positions, but they may not know exactly how to get there. To accomplish these goals, we use a number of different recruitment strategies. First, representation. Now, this plays a huge role in our efforts to diversify, to recruit and diversify the departments. You know, it's one thing for recruiters to go out there and recruit, but it's more effective if some of the people who are doing the recruiting look like you or have the same experiences like you. And MPD, MFD, and FPC recruitment teams are a diverse group, and they have relationships and connections within the community that ensure they are being inclusive. As you can see here, the flyers that we use also depict the diversity within the departments. We also place an emphasis on events tied to MPS activities to build a pipeline of diverse candidates. This is something we've historically done with respect to our police aid and to the police aid and fire cadet programs. We also recruit at open houses, community events, and cultural hubs like Sherman Phoenix, Latino Family Expo, and Puerto Rican Fest, as well as other strategic locations. The interactions at these events really make a difference. While COVID has made this more challenging, in-person recruiting has always been one of our major tactics. Also being intentional about where we hold events and who they're tailored to attract. As the father of 2 young girls, this next recruitment effort is really near and dear to my heart. Camp Hero. This is a camp we've been doing for about 6 years now. It's a week-long overnight camp that introduces high school-age girls to protective service careers. And this is a collaboration between the Fire and Police Commission, Milwaukee Police Department, the Fire Department, Girl Scouts, and MATC. And at this camp, the girls learn fire, police, and EMS activities. And the ultimate goal is to recruit young women from the city of Milwaukee, specifically MPS graduates. We also recruit using social media. We use text message alerts, email reminders, and increased communication to promote recruitment, which has resulted in significantly increased participation rates for application events, exams, and other testing. And finally, as an equity-based retention strategy, we host extensive prep sessions to help candidates prepare for testing and exams. Now, what are the results of these recruitment efforts? Just to give you these charts here show a little bit about some of the results of our recruiting. These show the demographic breakdown of the applicant pools of our most recent recruitment for police officer and firefighters. So I want to switch gears now and talk about a different aspect of the FPC's ongoing work, and that's the Collins Settlement Agreement. So this was a class action lawsuit that was filed in 2017 against the City of Milwaukee, the Fire and Police Commission, and the Milwaukee Police Department by a group of plaintiffs who were represented by attorneys from the American Civil Liberties Union. The plaintiffs claimed that the defendants' policies, practices, and customs related to police stops and frisks violated the Constitution by authorizing stops and frisks without reasonable suspicion of criminal conduct in violation of the Fourth Amendment. The city defendants denied the allegations, and litigation took place for over a year. But ultimately, the parties agreed to mediation, and they later entered into a settlement agreement known as the Collins Settlement Agreement. Now, the Collins Settlement Agreement is a very comprehensive 50-plus page document that outlines specific actions that the FPC and the Milwaukee Police Department are required to take in order to achieve reform in policing. By the terms of the agreement, the FPC and the Milwaukee Police Department committed to implement significant changes to policing, training, and supervision, as well as the use and sharing of data. The FPC and MPD are also required to utilize a consultant to assess whether we are complying with the Collins Settlement Agreement. The Crime and Justice Institute, or CJI, was selected to serve as the consultant by mutual agreement of the parties. And the agreement and the time frame of the agreement is 5 years. So the key elements of the agreement are changes to MPD policy, training, and behavior, strengthened supervision, consistent documentation and enhanced data collection, and improved transparency and accountability. But the ultimate goal of the agreement is constitutional policing in the city of Milwaukee. The core requirements of the agreement are not something extra that is required of the police department or the Fire and Police Commission. These are constitutional requirements that are necessary to ensure fairness and justice in our city. Now, pursuant to the settlement agreement, the FPC and the Milwaukee Police Department have the following key specific obligations. Both the Milwaukee Police Department and the Fire and Police Commission are required to audit complaints, traffic stops, field interviews, no action encounters, and frisks. We're required to recruit and promote a diverse corps of officers, improve training, supervision, and discipline. The Milwaukee Police Department is also required to ensure that fewer than 15% of police stops and frisks lack individualized, objective, and articulable reasonable suspicion. Now, this is the constitutional standard for police officers when they make a traffic stop or a police stop. And the Milwaukee Police Department is also required to ensure that there is no significant racial disparities in the rates of police stops. So we're currently in the 4th year of the settlement agreement, the beginning of the 4th year, and while there certainly is more work that needs to be done to reach full compliance, significant progress has been made. In September of this year, the CJI issued its 3rd annual report, and for the first time, that report deemed all 20 settlement clauses that apply directly to the Fire and Police Commission as either in compliance or in process towards achieving compliance. For the first time, none of those requirements are deemed non-compliant by CJI. The FPC also now has a stable leadership team and a fully staffed managed audit unit. The police department and the FPC are communicating and collaborating more effectively, particularly around the audits. The Fire and Police Commission has amended the relevant standard operating procedures and rules to conform to the settlement agreement requirements. The Milwaukee Police Department also has a solid project management team now and has continued to conduct regular audits of police stops and frisks. The Milwaukee Police Department has improved its in-service training for all its members, and it's proactively engaging with the Community Collaborative Commission. And the Milwaukee Police Department has made notable progress in documenting reasonable suspicion for police stops and frisks. And this next slide shows the progress that the Milwaukee Police Department has made. Now, the threshold that we need to get to is 85% of compliance for all police stops related to compliance in the sense that there is documented reasonable suspicion for all of these stops. And as you can see, the Milwaukee Police Department has done very well in documenting reasonable suspicion for traffic stops. That's consistently been in the 90th percentile for compliance. And the traffic stops are by far the vast majority of police stops that MPD conducts. In the last 6 months, the Milwaukee Police Department has also made progress in documenting field interviews, reasonable suspicion for field interviews. Those are pedestrian encounters, and it's made progress in documenting frisks and no-action encounters as well. So still more work that needs to be done to reach the threshold, but we are making progress. I want to briefly touch on the chief of police selection process that the board is engaged in. So with the addition, before I answer questions, this will be the final topic I cover. With the addition of 3 new commissioners that were appointed and confirmed in July of this year, the FPC embarked on a new chief of police selection process. In August, the board terminated the prior selection process. And in September, beginning of September, it unanimously voted to invite acting chief Jeffrey Norman to apply as the sole candidate for the next permanent chief of police of the Milwaukee Police Department. The board has interviewed acting chief Norman and he has participated in 3 community meetings that the FPC hosted in October. And the board plans to vote on the appointment of acting chief Norman on Thursday of this week. That's November 4th at its regular meeting. Now, the vote for a permanent chief of police has been a long time coming, and hiring the chief of police is one of the most critical functions of the FPC board. Having the permanent chief will provide stability and needed leadership at the Milwaukee Police Department. So I want to thank you all for your attention and for listening to my presentation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have. Yes, sir.
In some other cities, there is concern that there's a disconnect between the district attorney, the prosecution function, and the police function. Police would arrest the suspect, and the revolving doors often used in Chicago or New York or Philadelphia. Can you please describe the relationship between MPD and the city of Milwaukee and the prosecutorial function of the attorney in terms of criminal process?
Sure, and that's a very good, just for those that couldn't hear, the question was if I could describe the functions of the police department in the city of Milwaukee versus the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office that prosecutes criminal offenses. And so the Milwaukee Police Department works in close coordination with the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office. But they are two separate entities. The district attorney is an elected official. He's a county government official, and his responsibility is to prosecute criminal, so felony and misdemeanor offenses within the Milwaukee County area. Obviously, they work in coordination with the Milwaukee Police Department. That is one municipal police department within Milwaukee County, but they are separate and distinct entities. They don't necessarily always agree. Individual police officers may make an arrest, may believe that they have sufficient evidence to move a case forward, and attorneys with the district attorney's office may disagree. They may find that that they can't make a case beyond reasonable doubt. They may dismiss it. They may disagree with priorities and policies of a certain arrest. But by and large, they do work together very collaboratively and well. Again, our oversight function is over the police department, not the district attorney's office. So I'm a little less familiar with the workings of that office. Did that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I represented Chief Flynn and I represented Chief Morales. During the last 6 or 7 years, before the appointment of Judge Kessler, before the appointment of Ed Malone, the Fire Police Commission was an illegal, outrageous, out-of-control organization with no accountability. How does the Fire Police Commission have to account for their behavior, particularly when they act illegally, unconstitutionally, and out of sorts with
Okay. So the question was, how is the Fire and Police Commission to be held accountable for prior actions that occurred? Fair? I know there was more detail to your question, but I would say this: members of the Fire and Police Commission are accountable. They're appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Common Council. The mayor makes a determination about whether or not to reappoint commissioners following their terms. I believe in the case of the Morales litigation, the court was very clear that the demotion was without due process of law. I don't disagree with that. And that was a very unfortunate matter. What I want to do, though, is I want to be forward-looking and see how we can make improvements and avoid those kind of mistakes going forward. So I've hired, as you mentioned, we have 3 new great commissioners who were appointed in July. Commissioner Kessler is a former U.S. attorney, a retired partner at Foley and Lardner, and a former state appellate court judge. Ed Falone is a law professor at Marquette who teaches constitutional, immigration, and business law. So they have a wealth of legal and judicial experience that is really invaluable to the board. I myself am a lawyer, and in hiring people for the Fire and Police Commission, I want experience, professionalism. I've hired a staffing services manager and a test administration coordinator who both have prior experience with the FPC to help us regain some of the institutional knowledge we lost. The chief of staff I hired is an attorney, a former attorney for the city attorney's office, who's an expert in the Collins Settlement Agreement and in municipal law. She also represented the city and police officers in civil rights actions, so she has a wealth of experience. We use all of that to ensure that the FPC is deliberate, conscientious, and law-abiding. And our goal moving forward is to have the FPC be a model for the nation. We're building it up. There's more work to do, but we're headed in the right direction. Thank you. Yes. So, in all honesty, the question was, could I comment on the ACLU's perspective regarding our efforts in terms of compliance with the Collins Settlement Agreement? I'll say this. I agree with the ACLU. We're not where we need to be. There's more work that needs to be done, and this is work that has to be done because it's not simply requirements that are dictated by some court-ordered settlement agreement or some other matter. These are requirements of the Constitution. This is constitutional policing, and we are working very hard to get there. It is a big lift. I think part of the situation is that at both the Milwaukee Police Department and at the Fire and Police Commission, there has not been stable leadership over the previous 3-4 years. There was 2 different permanent chiefs. Since August of 2020, there's been 2 acting chiefs, and there hasn't been stable leadership at the Milwaukee Police Department. There's been 4 different executive directors within the FPC within the last 4 or 5 years. So it's been very difficult for one administration or team to move things forward. Now, all that being said, there have been improvements. The Milwaukee Police Department's training, the in-service training that all members of the departments went through from June through July of this year is very good. It was created in coordination with attorneys from the city attorney's office, with feedback from the lawyers at the ACLU, and also it included implicit bias training, training for supervisors on how to detect patterns of bias, and also a written exam at the end on issues that I think really made the training more effective. And it focused in on the areas in which we are not compliant and need to make improvements, like the documentation of reasonable suspicion for frisks. So that's the Milwaukee Police Department also has solid administrative structures. Their audit systems and their cursory reviews are very good. And at the Fire and Police Commission, we're just now beginning. We've built up our audit unit. It, as of recently, is fully staffed and managed, and so we'll also be able to use that going forward to audit independently Milwaukee Police Department frisks, stops, and identify areas of patterns or problems and things that need to be worked on. So I agree with the ACLU. We need to keep working on this. It's a tough lift, but it's something that absolutely needs to get done and will get done. Yes, sir.
So you indicated our structure is rather unequal in terms of our side of our police department. Can you briefly talk about other major cities and how they do this function, and how does that compare in terms of results?
You know, that's a really good question, and honestly, I don't know. The system of the civilian oversight structure that the FPC has in Milwaukee is somewhat unique, but it is somewhat also similar to fire and police commissions in other cities in the Wisconsin area. There's a few differences in the statutory framework for Milwaukee. Milwaukee is the only first-class city under the state statutes in Wisconsin. So the Milwaukee FPC has its own statutory structure that establishes the board's functions and responsibilities. There's a different statute that deals with other municipalities in Wisconsin and their fire and police commissions. They are somewhat similar, but again, there's minor differences. In terms of what other jurisdictions outside of Wisconsin do, in truth, I'm less familiar with that. That isn't something that I necessarily prepared for today, so I do apologize. I'm not able to answer your question more specifically. Yes.
So in general terms, not the client's terms, how do you feel, how does the mayor feel about the quality and the safety of our fire?
That is also a challenging area. Nationwide, there's been an uptick in gun violence, homicides. It's something that I know Acting Chief Norman is very conscious of, very aware of, and focused on. He's also focused on issues of reckless driving and auto thefts, other property crime. He really is taking a community engagement strategy to his approach to policing. He's out in the community, he's engaging with stakeholders and members of the public to enlist the help and ideas of different individuals and community leaders and organizations, and also to build trust within the community. The police department will be more effective if it has the trust and cooperation of the people that it's serving. So there are challenges. There's certainly more work that needs to be done. We can always do better, but things are moving forward on that front. Good question. So I do serve at the pleasure of the mayor. As everybody knows, Mayor Barrett has been appointed ambassador of Luxembourg. So there will be a new mayor when he is officially sworn in for that position. The acting mayor will be the Common Council President, Chevy Johnson, and then there will have to be, I imagine, either a special or subsequent election for the next mayor, and whoever the new mayor is, he or she will be able to pick or decide who the executive director should be. So I really can't speak to that. I'm just trying to focus in on the work I have in front of me right now and do the best I can. Thank you, everyone.
Lee, thank you very much for coming and speaking to our group this morning. In honor of leaders like you who come to speak to our club, we will make a donation to the YWCA of Southeastern Wisconsin, whose mission is eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. We also have one of our great Rotary Connecting mugs for you, and thanks for you coming in. Two quick final announcements. We've got a quick drawing here from Mr. Reeve. You're drawing one?
Two.
All right.
All right. Today we don't have bacon, but in honor of today's speaker, we have Peacemaker Collectivo coffee, as well as Black and Tan coffee. So the first card pulled.
Pat Algiers.
She just left our table. Good choice.
All right. And Mr. Gimbel.
We'll give Frank.
So thank you, everybody, for coming out and joining us. Please remember to grab your parking vouchers off the tables, and please join us next week. We're back to lunchtime with veterans Gregory Burke and Eric Roosh as they address mental health challenges facing vets today and what can be done to better serve them. So let's go out and do some good in the world. This meeting is adjourned. Yeah.